Ohio just happens to be the richest archaeological zone for the data that we're going to show tonight. The two principal cultures in North America that run parallel to the Adena, to the Jaredites and the Nephites of the Book of Mormon is called the Adena culture and the Hopewell culture. And they're just names. It could have been called anything, but that's the names that were given. And the Hopewell culture is the one that fits the Nephite timeline. What we have in southern Ohio, we have 534 fortified enclosures that are built like they are described by Captain Moroni in the Book of Alma. Ditches, earthen banks, wooden palisades, and then towers every so often. This is what we have throughout Ohio. We have in Ohio 1,700 village sites where these people lived. Their population was very, very large, and they were farmers. And they fought a defensive campaign, which is exactly what the Nephites did in the Book of Mormon. Dr. Hugh Nibley tells us this is a priesthood manual called An Approach to the Book of Mormon. It was used in 1957. A lot of you probably read this. I was in third grade in 1957, but some of you senior members here may have even had this book. You probably got it in your home. But Dr. Nibley was very careful to tell that the Nephites did not build out of stone. They made their cities out of wood, earth, and copper. And so what we would find today, we won't find anything left of the wood, but we will find the earth, and we should find the copper. But that's what they built out of. When Nephi broke away from the land of first inheritance, he immediately set out and built a temple like unto Solomon's temple in 1 Nephi. And he said he built it out of wood, not stone. And then you jump 400 years into the Book of Mormon to get to wicked King Noah's time. And wicked King Noah has taxed all the Nephites, and they're complaining bitterly because of the taxation. And at this time, they tell us that King Noah built his palaces, his synagogues, his temples, all out of wood. No stone for Nephites. It's wood, wood, wood. And I can't emphasize that enough. We read that there were some type of elephants in Americas. We know the woolly mammoth was here. We know the mastodon was here. But the early archaeologists and historians that dug in the mounds and the swamps and the earth banks of the Midwest found what they call the American pachyderm. They found a skeleton of an elephant, something like what we'd see today, but yet he was a little bit different. He was smaller. But they found these bones, and this is in Archaeology of Ohio by M.C. Reed, pages 116 and 117. And the reason they also said what was important about the find is that these bones, because they were preserved so well in the ground, they were just as good as the Hopewell bones of the people who lived here. And so therefore, they concluded that this American pachyderm was contemporary with the mound builder culture, side by side. These are pipes from Iowa. These were dug out of Davenport, Iowa in the 1800s, showing what looks like this American pachyderm may have looked like. They tell us, the archaeologists tell us, of course, that the Native Americans did not know how to smelt. And yet in Ohio, this is Bill Connor. He has a website. And Bill's website, he talks about the smelters that are found throughout Ohio. We have 31 of them. This right here is a mold. This is where the molten iron was poured in. And this is the top of the iron axe head. Here's the other side.
See, you're told a lot of things about history, but a lot of it cannot add up to the evidence. The evidence shows something entirely different, and it murmurs and echoes out to a lot of our historical books and myths. The place location, though, of a lot of this is America.
Here you can see the axe head, made out of iron, still in the mold, Ohio. 31 smelters. Next one. We're also told the Native Americans did not work in stone. They would not carve graven images, yet throughout the Midwest
they would not carve graven images. Yet we know that there was a lot of influence in and out of America and had changed a lot of cultures from one thing to another. We learn this through history, that a lot of cultures started from worshiping the creator, a single deity, and then eventually expanded to other gods, and eventually their ancestors became gods and they worshiped them as gods as well. We know that the Hindu was here. We know that a lot of the perversions from specific type of people, which goes back to their beginnings. You know, if somebody is prone to worship certain things, then eventually they're going to eventually just keep telling that story and keep trying to go back to that, to what is natural for them. So when other influences came here, like in a lot of the writings say, when other influences came and we became friends or we married with them, we took up a lot of the beliefs, a lot of the culture practices, like making graven images, like worshiping graven images.
Find stone idols practically in every state. This one here was found in Chicago. You can see it today. It's at Fort Dearborn on the north side of the city of Chicago. Stands about 4 feet high. It's called a Wabansi stone. The top of it here is shaped like a bowl. It's hollow, and the liquid you would pour in the top spews out of the mouth. It's really quite an ugly stone, but it's there on display, the Wabansi stone. We find oil lamps. This one here was from La Crosse, Wisconsin area, kicked up by a farmer in the 1960s. Here's where the oil would be poured in. This is where the wick would be to light the flame. And the thing is so Mediterranean, it just hurts. But of course, what do the archaeologists tell us? Nobody here before Columbus.
And see, so this looks so Mediterranean. We don't understand that America was a massive trading point where people from all over the world came to trade. Norris Francis says there was, just like in Asia, the Silk Road, there were 7 Silk Roads over here, trade routes here, which went throughout all of the Americas, that connected all nations and trading ports. This is a mass area trade. This is the first melting pot, what we would consider the old world. We know that the Pierce Native American tribe who fought and was captured, and the chief Smith had a cuneiform tablet that he considered sacred, which when translated was a receipt that his ancestors had gotten from the Mediterranean. When the people that were living in the Mediterranean came to America and brought sacrificial animals and sold it to his ancestors, and that was the receipt stating the transaction. So there's so much evidence, yet nothing is being made clear because we live in a land and time of confusion. Now we're entering into the age of Aquarius, to the age of enlightenment, and we're starting to uncover all of these things. But it has been around for a long time. If you're European and you're working in this field, you already know of all of these things. They call this place the land of milk and honey, the promised land.
Therefore, it has to be fake. What do you think of that? This is 400 to 500 AD, found in a cave in West Virginia. It's made out of cedar. Cedar doesn't rot. It's pretty durable. This is a statue.
Now you remember in all throughout our ancient writings it says the cedars of Lebanon, and throughout all of America you have a Lebanon, and throughout America you have cedar forests. So back in the day, our ancestors' wood of choice was the cedar and the acacia. In Polynesia, the acacia tree and the sandalwood was used a lot. Sandalwood was a great resource, and the acacia tree was for building. It's a very durable, heavy wood. So that was used for building and our ships and everything, even our houses. In America, it also used acacia wood, but they also had a lot of cedar wood that they were able to use. Both acacia and cedar wood have many medicinal properties to it. So it wasn't either or. We used both of them. We used everything that was given to us by the Creator. So I'll continue the video.
It's worn from weathering. As you can see, it's a personage holding some kind of an animal. What do you think it is? It looks like the Christ with the shepherd, doesn't it? The lost sheep. Can't say for sure, but it sure looks like it. But there it is, and this is found next to a Hopewell site in West Virginia. Southern Illinois has produced a variety of very strange and unusual artifacts. Very Egyptian in flavor. Here we have this Egyptian fellow here. This is an Egyptian cartouche. Here we have these lozenges, and we have 3 pyramids standing here. There were so many things like this found in southern Illinois that the bottom 1/3 of the state is called Little Egypt. And that has stuck. And look at the next slide, please. So many things like this found in southern Illinois that the bottom 1/3 of the state is called Little Egypt. And that has stuck. And look at the next slide, please. If you go there, this is what you'll see in southern Illinois. You will find the name of Egypt or Egyptian in many of the businesses throughout all the small towns in southern Illinois. Here's the Egyptian State Bank chain. To tell you the truth, I don't think I put my money in that bank, but that's all right. Here it is, Egyptian State Bank. You'll see the Egyptian Hospital, you see the Egyptian Humane Society, and etc. etc. It's very common, and it's very unusual to see, but it's all in southern Illinois where these unusual artifacts are found. Wherever the Promised Land was, we know right off the bat, when the Jaredites arrived in their Promised Land, they found copper. And they dug the copper, and they cast up mighty heaps of earth to get the ore of gold, of silver, of iron, and of copper. They had to have a rich, mineralized area somewhere. Next one, please. When the Nephites arrived, they also had copper very early on. Now let's read this one from Jeremiah 1:8. We multiplied exceedingly and spread upon the face of the land, and became exceedingly rich in gold, silver, precious things, and fine workmanship of wood in buildings and in machinery, and also in iron and copper. So, where are the ancient copper mines? Who knows? Where are they? Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Here's Wisconsin, where I reside. This is top. This is main state of Michigan over here. This is called Upper Peninsula. Here's Wisconsin, where I reside. This sits up on top. This is main state of Michigan over here. This is called Upper Peninsula. The copper is right here. Just a huge vein.
So there's ancient copper mines. We know in Ancient Aliens, they talk about all the ancient mines in America. Yeah, we don't respect it because we love aliens. We love to hear aliens coming back. Aliens is amazing. You know? Independence Day. All these ancient copper mines are right here. All the ancient pyramids and mounds are right here. All the bodies, all the bodies of the giants is right here. All the mounds with the giants in them are right here. David and Goliath happened right here. Check this one out. It's from Ohio. It's buried in Utah. Red-haired giants in Brewer's Cave. The elephants, the lions, they were here. They're extinct now. Look at all the information. So much information. There's a lot of archaeological information. Just like he's trying to show you, but he's not showing you. He's showing others that have the interest like he does in history, in his area.
Copper. And this is where we find ancient copper mines. The oldest mine, carbon material taken from the mine, has been dated at 2174 BC by the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. That is a fit for the Jaredite timeline of copper mining. These copper mines up here were worked until 3 to 4, possibly even 500 AD, and then they were worked no more. And that is a fit for our Hopewell people, which is a Nephite timeline fit. Copper. Now, also up here, like the state of Utah, Upper Peninsula around the Great Lakes here is a highly mineralized area. We find tin, we find gold, we find silver, all kinds of precious metals, and of course, ore is up there as well. So it's a highly mineralized area, and it was worked all during the Book of Mormon time period. Next one. Here's a picture of copper points, which are like ones that are up here. These are all hardened copper. These are not smelted. These are cold hammered. It's a lost process that we cannot duplicate today. Here's some more copper. These are smelted copper points.
Bam, that's
Here's
the
the ruler
one.
for size. These are all up here on the table. Notice these all hardened copper. These are not smelted. These are cold hammered. Ore is up there as well.
They always
So it's a
talk
highly
about
mineralized
this
area.
ancient copper, this ancient source that was super strong, and they don't know how to make it anymore.
Here's a picture of copper points, which are like ones that are up here. These are all hardened copper.
Hardened
These
copper.
are not smelted. These
Not
are cold
smelted.
hammered.
Cold
It's a
hammered.
lost process that
Lost
we cannot duplicate
process.
today.
Very durable.
Here's some more copper. These are smelted copper points. Here's your ruler for size. These are all
See
up
the
here on
color
table.
difference?
Notice these holes here where they were pinned onto a wooden shaft. Only one place has that pin been found intact. It was at Waukesha, Wisconsin, out of a dig. And the pin was an
Wisconsin.
iron pin that was used to hold this copper into its wooden shaft.
And what?
Again, a piece
And we
of
see
iron
it in
showing up.
Pumapunka,
This
the
is
H
all
blocks, and
Hopewell timeline.
Tiwatunuka.
These Hopewell people also
The
had
H
flutes
blocks
and pipes,
had
musical
metal
instruments. They were highly
pings
cultured.
inside to hold them together.
This one's out of Ohio.
Clamps.
And they adorned their buildings and all kinds of places with some highly stylized copper carvings. Notice this guy's beak here. We find in the copper mounds, in the mounds of Ohio, we find a bird we call it a parrot, but we now know it's really a parakeet. It's
Parakeet.
a North American parakeet. Today, that parakeet only lives in the bottom tip of the state of Florida. But during the Hopewell timeline, which is the Book of Mormon timeline, that parakeet lived in the state of Ohio because we find them in their graves. For some reason, they treasured them and they used them. They kept their beaks and their claws for burial purposes. We don't know how it was used. But what that tells us is that at that time, it had to be a warmer climate. It was a much warmer climate for that bird to exist throughout the Ohio area in such great numbers. Helaman 610. Now the land south was called Lehi, and the land north was called Mulek, which was after the son of Zedekiah. So the Lord did bring Mulek into the land north and Lehi into the land south. Now, the archaeological record for the Hopewell people, it is divided into two groups. Let's take a look. Up here, 2 Nephi 10 and 20.
See, this guy thinks it's white or Mongoloid people. But you and I know that the people in the Bible are the Ethiopians. Is Afro people.
If you lived in the Eastern
So
Hemisphere,
we understand now. We're realizing that the Indians are Afro people. So this is coming right
basically,
into.
they didn't know how big those places were. So if they set sail and they hit land, it was automatically called an island. So here we have an Isle of the Sea being identified for the Promised Land.
So we know the Indians are Afro. My father is 100% Indian.
What do you call
the people of the Bible are Afro, copper colored.
Call it Turtle Island. That's the name for the North American continent.
Turtle Island. America is Turtle Island. America is Adam's land. America is given to Shem in the division of lands in the time of Noah.
On the eastern half of North America. The largest of them is the
We know that the
family.
Canaanites came to the land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey, Adam's land.
And the Mulekites,
they came there.
I'm suggesting,
we know that the Canaanites
came
here.
The Native Americans, who are of the Algonquin lineage, tell us they came into the North American continent through the St. Lawrence Seaway into the Great Lakes and settled in North America.
We think the Canaanites are black people, but they're not.
The Iroquois nation that today
There's dark
resides
races
in New York,
within the
they tell us
Canaanites,
that they
but it's
landed
not
somewhere
Afro
on the
people.
coast of Florida, Georgia, or the Carolinas. They don't know the exact spot. And they originally lived in the South. And eventually, after the Mound Builder culture was eliminated, they moved up into here,
Eliminated.
and these guys moved into there, and of course they became their mixing. So we have two principal groups of Indians. And again, notice, they all come across from the east. And we'll bring this up again. Next one. This here is a report by Milton R. Hunter of the Quorum of the Twelve.
Afro and the
Oral
non-Afro.
history given by Chief Shupshie of the Potawatomi. He's of the Algonquin family. Indianapolis, Indiana, June 22nd, 1951. This is pretty important. Chief Shupshie, explanation of the migration of people to ancient America, who the peoples were and where they came from. He said that the Indians had traditions of their ancestors living in America continuously from Adam's time, and that the population on this land had been augmented from time to time by 4 or 5 migrations. These migrations had traditions of their ancestors living in America continuously from Adam's time, and that the population on this land had been augmented from time to time by 4 or 5 migrations. These migrations came to America from the east. It is evident that the Indians' tradition agrees with the Book of Mormon in several important respects. He said that one group of colonists came to America about 4,000 years ago in boats like tortoise shells. This migration would compare favorably with the Jaredites. Chief LaHaru, or Chief Shupshie, explained that their traditions also told of groups of colonists who compared favorably with the Nephites and the Mulekites. He also told of the coming of the yellow race, and that they brought to America the bad practice of scalping, human sacrifice, and much sex immorality. Part of these people married and merged with the Indians and became the Aztec Indians. Brought to America the bad practice of scalping, human sacrifice, and much sex immorality. Part of these was also told of groups of colonists who compared favorably with the Nephites and the Mulekites. He also told of the coming of the yellow race, and that they brought to America the bad practice of scalping, human sacrifice, and much sex immorality. Part of these people married and merged with the Indians and became the Aztec Indians of Mexico, and others moved eastward across the U.S. and became the Algonquins, or they became mixed with the Algonquin people. Isn't that something? Now, I want to point out this up here about the boats. Let's see. Turn
So
the
you
boat.
see, I don't know if you got me.
Here, tortoise shells.
If I turn it anymore,
Interestingly
it might fall.
enough, if you pick up a book by the Ojibwe tribe of Algonquin people, they will tell you straight out that the boats their ancestors came across
You
to
see, there was two groups. A non-Afro, lighter skinned, yellow people, like Chinese. And there was a mahogany to dark brown, blackish, like a popolo, a blackish to mahogany, copper colored Afro people. And in the descriptions, you can see that there was the different grades. That's why today we have an Afro grade, 3D, 4D. What grade of Afro are you? Meaning people with woolly, tight hair is springs like this. It's just springs. These springs are our coils which the Creator has given us to use nature and gather our electrical and magnetic fields in order to perceive the world and live healthy. All right, mines are tight, but the woolly hair are really tight. That's super tight, and as it degrades, where it's not as tight, where it was from mixing, whatever it may be. It's just different grades of coil. Then you have people with just curly hair, and then you have another type of Afro that doesn't really grow. So in the description, there was my description. In the pictures, you see my pictures. So there was two types of Afro, two types of people, a non-Afro and an Afro people. The Afro people had histories of being here since the time of Adam and going back and forth several times. Just like in the book right here, it just says they went back and forth several times to and from Pachivalon, which is Tripoli, back to America because they were enslaved by King Shamanazar, who realized is Genghis Khan. So if I can find this, I know it's under one of these. It says right here, 4 times Wotan is said to have returned to his former home across the Atlantic, known as Balan Chivim, or Denise eventually identified as the city of Tripoli. Right? So 4 times he went back and forth. This thing is saying that 4 times they went back and forth. Right here is the Aztecs saying that, oh, this last time we came back, the guy who had our ancestors enslaved, brought us back here with some troops, some Hittite, some Native American troops who was watching over us as our supervisors. Then when we got here, we ended up mixing with them, and they became our family, and they said they never liked go back. So he came back to pick them up and us up to fight the wars they was losing on the other side of the world. And then we said, no, we ain't going nowhere. We're a great kingdom now. You want to try and take us? So he left, all salty. He said, I'm going to come back one day and enact revenge upon you. Right here. All of this stuff adds up. We're not listening. Just dig deeper. That's all I say. Don't believe everything I say. Take 10 steps to investigate, because 6 of the steps, they're going to knock you down and try to pervert history or stop you from finding information. So just dig deep, and this thing's going to come right onto your lap, and you'll realize you've been sitting in the Holy Lands. You've been sitting in the Promised Land. Alright, peace.